many, many years ago in my practice. I think I was angry at the time. I did write a letter, and I said, Judge, please spare the life of this young man. Killing him, taking another life will, this is the common thing people say, right? Killing him will not make things better. But what I would like you to do is see to it that he is subjected to every conceivable high-risk medical experiment known to humankind, and he should perish in the process. As I look back on it, I was still gone. I was still thinking along the lines of vengeance and vindictiveness. Churchill said, if you seek revenge, dig 2 graves. He said some other things too. What is it? Revenge is a dish best served cold, something like that. You decide. If you think retaliation is okay, go for it. I find it of very limited usefulness. So what do you do when you get angry? I want you to determine how important this issue is. And if you are too high on your scale of anger, above that flash point, I would want you to, first of all, calm it down. Now, anger management part 1 is the first page on this packet that I have given you, and it contains very powerful, helpful skills in service of calming anger beneath that flash point. I will go over that in just a bit. Anger management part 2 is on the second sheet, and it has to do with addressing, discussing, expressing feelings about, exploring the reasons why, and then remedying the issue of unfairness that gave rise to anger in the first place. Now, the relation between anger management part 1 and anger management part 2 is roughly the same relationship that exists between a fever and an infection. If you have a fever, we're taught what? To calm it down with ice or Tylenol or aspirin. Once we get it down to 98.7, 98.8, 98.6, are we home free? What must we do? What happens if we calm the fever down? We certainly save our brains from brain damage if it's very high fever. But what happens? Nothing. It's just calmed down, and it will probably go right back up because we haven't knocked out the infection yet. That must be done. A fever is a very valuable sign that there is something that needs to be done. Leprosy is a very valuable sign. But what does leprosy signal? There was a man who was doing research in a leper community in, I believe it was India, in the late 50s, early 60s, who was going to his lab one morning during the rainy season with his little helper who was afflicted with leprosy. And the physician could not get the key to turn because the lock was rusted out. So the little boy, wanting to be helpful, said, "Oh, I can do it, I can do it." He said, "Okay, kid, do your best." And the boy put the key in the lock and unlocked the door. Have you heard about this? In the process, he almost severed his index finger and had no awareness of that at all. Later, this man did some thoughtful reflection on that process and discovered that leprosy was fundamentally a neurological problem having to do with lost pain sensation, peripheral neuropathy in the hands and the feet and the arms and the legs. People had no awareness. They would bang their hands into something and they would get hurt. They would not attend to it. It would get infected and the tissue would die. Pain associated with tissue injury is lost in leprosy. I said that leprosy is a signal. Actually, pain is the valuable signal that leprosy has destroyed. And isn't it ironic that we have spent billions of dollars, that we spend billions of dollars every year to rid ourselves of pain? And yet without it, we would be in horrible shape. Anger is a signal. It signals that there is an infection of injustice in our lives. We must then address and resolve that issue of unfairness, or it won't go away. I wish that it would go away, but it won't. I've heard for years, I think first from my mother, the tincture of time will heal. I think that's baloney. I don't think there is anything about time that is healing in and of itself. In fact, time may even deepen our sense that we have been wrong. It may even deepen. It's what you do in that time that makes all the difference, whether you will be angrier or whether you will be less angry. So the second part of anger management is to address the issue and resolve it if it is an issue of importance. Now, what are some of the things that you might think would be helpful for people to do when they are angry? So we're talking now about part one, anger management, gentling it down beneath your flashpoint for taking vindictive or retaliatory action. I would like you to stop. I would like you to think, I am not going to go there. I am not going to slam doors, be verbally aggressive, make the situation a bigger mess. I think it's important to assume a lot of responsibility for regulating our behaviors as adults, instead of being externally dependent on resources other than ourselves to do it, or substances like alcohol or drugs, to calm us. I think we need to learn the skills of calming. I would like to suggest two general areas. One would be imagery. Do you have peaceful scenes that you think about when you need to calm your anxiety or your anger? Develop them. They are wonderfully refreshing, and they take you out of the immediate circumstances of provocation. Also, calming statements. Tell yourself things that will calm you down rather than jack you up. What would some of those things be? Any idea? What did your mother tell you when you were upset? Breathe. Yes, breathe. By the way, diaphragmatic breathing, anybody know what that is? Diaphragmatic is to put stomach out rather than shoulders up. My version is 3 counts breath in through the nose, hold it to a count of 4, 3, 4 equals 7. Swoosh it out, imagining that it is your anger, the fire of your anger, and swoosh it out to a count of 7. Don't count slowly. You may get a little dizzy. Try that. Take 2 or 3 breaths, and you will be calmer. Reassure yourself, this will pass. Things will look better in the morning. I can deal with this. It's not all that important. Let it go. I do not like that expression, let it go, but I must confess, sometimes it works. In fact, somebody in a presentation recently pointed out that it's right there, big as life, on the front of my page. On the front page of my handout. What I meant to say, I need to go edit this, is to say, stop, let it go for now. In my impetuous, angry, younger years, my own problems with anger were quite a struggle. My family was a very angry family. I don't blame them for my certainly was the context in which I learned how to be a very angry, excessively angry person. My brother and my father especially. Well, this just doesn't work real well for a graduate student in psychology who wants to become a therapist. And my advisor, not the guy that I was talking about earlier, but another man who was very, very helpful at the University of Iowa, said, I think you need some help, Ryan, because you've got 2 strikes against you. And if you get another strike, you're going to be going back home and what was in the paper chase movie, the guy gives the student a dime that says, call your mother and tell you she needs to pick you up and take you home. And I knew I was out of control. So he said, you need to get some help. And I did. Now, you aren't going to believe this, but I went to this therapist, renowned therapist. And this was back, actually, this was after my internship here was in Tucson. Wonderful person. I go in to see this person. And she said, well, tell me, why are you here? And I said, I'll be honest with you, I'm really, really angry. And she said, leans forward and she says, I can see that. Now that provoked me right there. And I said, can you help me? And she said, yes, I can help you. And I thought I had found maybe the Holy Grail. She was very, very convincing. And we talked some more and she got some history and I said, the help, I want the help. And she said, okay, relax. Sit back in your chair and close your eyes. I said, okay, now we're going. And she said, I want you to be calm. I'm going to lead you through a calming imagery process. And she did. She said, now I want you to imagine, eyes shut, relax, gathering together all of the anger that you felt, all of your very angry life, and putting it into a big ball. This was not headed in a good direction. And then she said, and I want you to get a balloon that you can put all of that anger into. And so I did. I went along with it. I would stuff the balloon full of anger, and do a big stuff, just filled with anger. And she said, now I want you to put helium in that balloon. And with the heat of your anger and the helium, that balloon is going to rise way above into the sky, into the stratosphere, up higher and higher and higher, until all of a sudden, poof, it explodes and diffuses into the universe. And then she said, okay, you can open your eyes. How are you feeling? And I lied. And I said, I think I'm feeling a little bit better. Actually. And I left there, never came back, thinking, I wish my therapist had been in that balloon, that she she would have diffused her. Not helpful. Another therapist said, Brian, you've got to let it go. You must let it go. It's too big of a problem. And I was thinking to myself, if I could have let it go, I wouldn't have been here. I need your help. What must I do in letting it go? In the privilege I have had in supervising many therapists over the years, I have heard and seen them in videotapes say, you have to let it go. What I have come to understand that expression to mean is that therapist has reached their limits of being able to help. Please avoid using that expression because it might be very provoking. Okay, anger management part 1, anger management part 2. Let it go for now. Back to anger management part 1. Calm yourself. Okay, we've done that with breathing and with imagery. Tell yourself, I don't have to have my way in this matter. This is not the hill I want to die on. This is not an important issue right now. My job is to calm myself. Decrease your competitiveness, your drive to be there first, to have your own way. Challenge yourself to gather more information. Maybe you've got it wrong. This is part of that validation of your perception of injustice. Maybe you have it wrong. You remember Sonny in The Godfather, the first Godfather movie? He gets really, really angry because his sister, who married into another crime family, is now calling him for the 15th time, saying that he is beating her up. And so James Caan, man, he gets angry, gets in his car and squeals his tires, and he goes over there to beat that guy up. But he comes to the toll station, and there's no toll station guy to take his money, and 6 guys with machine guns stand up and they shoot him. He should have been, what? Less angry. He should have been thinking outside the restricted box of his assumptions of unfairness, and have been thinking about something that would make him anxious. Now, real quickly, before I forget, move on to something else. What causes anxiety? We know that an event happens here, we perceive it unjust here, we get angry here. An event happens here, we perceive a question mark here, we get anxious here. What causes anxiety? Perceptions of what?
Failure.
Perceptions of failure?
Danger.
Danger. I think maybe failure. If we are threatened or sense danger or vulnerability or being in harm's way or being insecure, we will feel anxiety of one variety or another. Now, my well-intentioned, mean former supervisor colleague said, of course, all anger comes from fear. You know, when he said that, what I thought of was a book that was written as I was just finishing graduate school and getting ready to write my dissertation. And it was about cliches that therapists use. And it was hilarious. And I wish I could remember what it was, but one of the cliches is, you look just so empathic and you lean forward and you say, Brian, underneath that anger is an awful lot of pain. Things like that, not particularly helpful. Okay, so let's say that some guy comes barging in through this door and holds a gun to my head. Right now, what am I going to feel? Anxiety, yes. There may be injustice, but I'm not thinking about the unfairness. I'm thinking about my life is in danger. Okay, and so you nicely disarmed this guy. Now what am I going to feel? Not quite yet. I'm going to be very relieved and very grateful. 1 nanosecond later, I'm going to be really, really angry. Because there are many injustices here. Interruption of our meeting, that's one. But the big one is being subjected to the toxic feelings of the highest levels of anxiety that a person can feel, and that is fearing for your life. Have you ever been in an airplane that hit a wind shear and you lost 10,000 feet in a matter of a minute or two? That's fear. That's huge fear. It is very unfair, not to be interrupted, but extremely unfair to be subjected to that level of anxiety. So that's the connection between anger and anxiety. The anger, yes, seems to flow from the anxiety, but it isn't caused by it. It's caused by the injustice of experiencing that level of anxiety. Okay. I think that's the relationship. Now, back to more gentling down strategies. Gather more information. Challenge yourself to be more empathic, more understanding, more patient, and more tolerant, and you will likely be less angry. Lower your expectations. That's a powerful way to calm extreme anger. Be less judgmental. Judgmental people, I have found, are oftentimes dichotomous thinkers who don't see the shades of gray between the black and the white, and they come to quick decisions about the unfairness or not unfairness of a particular situation. Challenge yourself to be not a dichotomous thinker, to be not judgmental in your evaluations of people. Judgment, of course, I'm using in this sense to attach an evaluation of goodness, or in the case of anger, badness to something. Just find out the what about it. Hilda Brooke, fabulous theoretician and academician in the area of eating disorders, many of you I'm sure are familiar with her, said, become a fact finder with your patients, not an investigator, not a judge, but a fact finder. Go for the information. Okay. Those are all very helpful skills. The most powerful skill, I think, on this sheet is gratitude. Because gratitude puts us into touch with the things that are good and fair in our lives. If there is one all-purpose anger, control, gentling down skill that I would encourage you to adopt, it would be gratitude. Or teach to the angry people in your life. The more grateful you are, probably the less angry you are. Are there other things that you have found helpful in the calming of excessive anger?
Music is very calming.
Music is wonderfully calming. Exercise could go either way. How about humor?
Funny videos. Funny videos.
Funny videos. Exactly. How about the angry person being humorous? Dangerous. Because the blend of anger and humor is sarcasm. And sarcasm always has a dart on the end of it. So be careful about that. But in other contexts, humor, very good. Music, very good. Immersing yourself in hot or cold water sometimes is very good as well. Talking with a friend. Writing sometimes. These are all excellent, excellent things. The idea, buy yourself some time and commit yourself to not being vindictive, because that will make for a bigger mess. Now, confrontation. Let's say now you're beneath your flashpoint for the abusive expression of your anger. How do you confront? How is it that you confront? Think of people that you have a fairly equal relationship with. Because when there are power differentials, it's much more difficult for the person on the underside of that differential to confront an authority, because they might get hammered in their employment or their whatever setting they're in. How do you confront somebody? Please tell me what works. Let's say that think about an issue that you have had with somebody that's important to you. What have you done? How have you brought it up? What did you say? Silent treatment? By the way, what is two definitions? We know what anger is. What is resentment? Resentment, I think, is the feeling of anger that comes from a long-standing, important issue of unfairness that's never been satisfactorily resolved and just sort of hovers over your head. Not resolved, it's always there. Very painful to be a resentful person. In the addiction field where I work, my goodness, resentments will eat you alive and are probably among the #1 forces causing relapse that I know. Okay, another definition, passive aggressiveness. We've heard that's a vile thing to be. Many of us have indulged in a little passive aggressiveness along the way. What do we do when we are passive aggressive? Any ideas?
Internalizes
Oh, I wish.
and
But you're right, yes. That's getting real close to it. Passive aggressiveness, a little bit of conflict in the theory of passive aggressiveness. Psychodynamic people would lead us to believe that it's an unconscious or subconscious